So, by our restricted definition of Middle East, so we're not including Persia, which is modern Iran, nor are we including Anatolia, that's modern Turkey, nor are we including the Arabian Peninsula, which you've already learned about. So by that narrower definition of the Middle East, the states, that is to say countries that we are concerned with, are Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Jordan. And we'll especially focus on Syria and Iraq. This is the Fertile Crescent that links the Levant, which is the eastern Mediterranean shoreline, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine. So the Fertile Crescent links that Levant to Mesopotamia, right, which is the Tigris and Euphrates river valleys, basically modern Iraq, which those rivers flow into the Persian Gulf. So that's the Fertile Crescent connecting those two areas. And this is the Middle East, the core of the Middle East by our restricted definition. Israel and Palestine, which isn't yet a state, are also in the Levant part of the Middle East, intimately connected with Lebanon and Syria and Jordan. But because it's a majority Jewish state, Israel is, not Muslim, so we're not going to deal with it directly in this course. And also the small modern state of Kuwait is sort of a transition between the Middle East and the Arabian Peninsula. It's important to keep in mind how modern these states are. All of these boundaries, international boundaries, were imposed and defined in the 20th century. And some of the modern states at least have long histories on a conceptual level, Syria especially, and to some extent Lebanon. But others didn't even exist as concepts until about 100 years ago at the most, namely Iraq and Jordan. All right, so what is this Fertile Crescent again? Well, it's an upside-down U-shaped zone of moderate annual rainfall, and within this arc to the south is desert, and outside of this arc to the north and the northeast and the northwest are mountains, right? The mountains of southeastern Turkey and northwest Iran. So again, the Fertile Crescent includes Mesopotamia and the Levant, which is mountainous but also includes the Jordan Rift Valley, and then some sort of semi-desert areas that connect the two, known as Upper Mesopotamia. In between is desert to its south, an extension of the Arabian Desert. Here it's called the Syrian Arabian Desert. Major rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates of Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, flowing into the Persian Gulf. So Mesopotamia is where the big bustling capital city of Iraq is, Baghdad, as well as the fertile lands along those rivers. When you get into Upper Mesopotamia, this is the area that's been fought over by the Kurds and by ISIS. The Haran Plain, where Syria and Turkey and Iraq all come together. The Syrian Arabian Desert, not a lot of population there, but what there is has been fought over by ISIS in recent years. And back in the Levant, the geography gets quite complex. Valleys like the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, the anti-Lebanon mountains, which are snow-capped between Syria and Lebanon, and that Jordan Rift Valley where continental crust is being pulled apart, and so that's why you have the lowest elevation in the world, the Dead Sea, which the Jordan River flows into. This is the Dead Sea, famous for having a high salt content between Jordan and Israel. In Syria, most people live in the eastern third of the country, this eastern plateau, which is hilly and rather more fertile and has higher rainfall than the desert part of eastern Syria, even further east. It's where the Druze live, this ethnic minority in southern Syria. So once you feel you've absorbed the relative locations of the states and how they relate to this region's physical geography, you're going to want to move on to learning about the ethnic groups and how they relate to modern states. You'll read pages 110 to 114 in the held reading, and you'll carefully absorb the mini slideshow, the first one. But keep this in mind, we're using ethnic group to mean several different things here. All right? Ethnicity is a problematic concept anywhere. Basically, it means how people identify themselves or others in ways that differ from the world's division into nation states. But in the Middle East, the idea of ethnic groups is especially complicated. Ethnic groups here typically combine religion, which includes various kinds of Islam, along with cultural affinity, language, geographic proximity, and nationality, that is to say, state citizenship. These are all complicating factors. And as usual, I like to first categorize by language family. You'll note that Held does this too in that reading. Pay attention to how Held is discussing ethno-linguistic groups in a larger area than just this restricted definition of the Middle East. He includes North Africa, Iran, Turkey, even the Caucasus Mountains in those couple of pages that describe the ethnic groups of this area. So he's actually including 4 different language families, whereas for now you just have to learn about 2 of those language families, the Afro-Asiatic family and the Indo-European.